Hi, everyone. Welcome. This is going to be our last live session for this course. So thanks so much for joining, and thanks for, making this just a lively, engaging course with all of your participation. Um, and Abdulaziz says hi from sunny Orilla in Canada. Thanks so much. Um, Yeah, I just wanted to remind you guys that you have another 3 weeks to uh, finish the certificate, so you don't have to feel rushed, and that you'll still, be able to get it in at your pace. And I didn't have anything in particular planned to talk about other than to show you maybe one or two things that might be helpful um, with fact checking and, maybe talk about any questions or comments that you have. Hi from Pakistan. Hi in from Sukara in Pakistan. How are you, Sukara? And then Peg, Pontiac, Michigan. Air quality yellow. Yeah, we've had that here in New York City. Um, no, not 1 week. Yes, you do have 3 more weeks, so that's really good to get that certificate for the hours that you've put in to this. And Jody from Montana. Sorry, I have Montreal on the mind because I want to go to Montreal. But I would love to go to Montana too. Eileen from Ottawa, and so great to see everyone. So please, feel free to hop in when you have any comments or questions. I'll start out with just asking, does anyone have any questions or comments about the most recent session that you've completed or the fact-checking session in particular? Just let me know if you have any questions about that, and you can unmute or just put your question in chat. Hi, Danielle from Trinidad. Joy, how should we be thinking about seeking facts in a world of personalized search results, algorithms that feed information based on location? Excuse me. That's a really good question. Yeah, it's a very good question.
I was, if I can just jump in, I'll just elaborate a little
Please.
bit. My video is not turning on. So, oh, there we go. Hi, everybody. I saw a couple of stories this week about dynamic pricing and prices that change depending on, where you are located and whatnot. So, I live in a high income zip code, even though my personal income is not that high. So I
Yeah.
don't know if, when I search for something, I'm getting a different price than someone who lives in a different area of the country. And similarly, if I'm searching for facts, I'm not sure how we should be thinking about this in terms of, are we living in a universe of one set of facts? I think increasingly we're not. And I'm just
Mm.
wondering if this has come up in your discussions or how you're thinking about how do we establish reality when everyone's reality is based on some personalized information on certain things. That's
Oh
my
my,
question.
wow,
I'm
that's
sorry, it's a big question.
that's meta.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm
Oh,
like, I'm like going back into my head. It's a really good question. I mean, I can, the that is absolutely true. And I mean, when you think about, I was reading something about journalism, and it was sort of about, you know, many times, like, even though, we're in a tough spot as journalists in a profession that's um, been been rocky to say the least, and but many of us have degrees, many of us have advanced degrees, and not everyone in the country comes from that same perspective. Um, so I think number one, Joy, it's really good that you're thinking in terms of that, not just because you're trying to find the price of something, but because of how important it is to think of how someone may be experiencing something very different from the way you experienced it. So there's that. And we sort of did cover that with the New York Times article on the Indigenous artist who was feeling her art and feeling her community and, was just being looked at through a certain lens by a reporter who didn't really get that memo. So I think just to answer the direct question about, how algorithms could distort a fact that you're trying to get pricing on. The only way to get around that would either, be to ask other journalists, right, who do the same kind of searches as you to get those same kind of numbers, or to look for an organization that collects those numbers from around the country, right? So, they would collect gas. There are organizations that collect gas prices. There are organizations that collect, grocery prices. And, you could also make phone calls and ask people in the area or journalists in the area. We were talking a little bit about crowdsourcing. We definitely talked about it a little when we were discussing, in the first course when Dr. Booker, the dean of a journalism school in Kenya, told us that, yeah, it's really hard to get certain facts that just aren't provided by the government or aren't accessible by journalists or regular people. And we have to keep WhatsApp open for journalists so that if you have any knowledge on the ground, if you know anyone that we could talk to get that information. So that's one way. The second way is I'm just going to share for a second, and then I'll get into the chat because I see that you're all chatting, and I want to know what you're thinking about as well. You can go, you see in Chrome here, you could go into the incognito window, and you could actually put, like price of gas, Holland, Michigan, right? And then, just try and find a local organization or a local or a national organization, right? A stakeholder. We talked about that in both the data portion. Just a stakeholder who cares about the same thing you do. But you're right, absolutely right, Joy. These are barriers that we face, and if we just take everything that's delivered to us in a search engine or in a database at face value without thinking critically about it in some way, there's definitely the time element. How far can we dig into this and find all the weaknesses? Census data has a ton of weaknesses, but for the most part, it's a lot of what we have to work with, right? So we work with it. We try to identify and get input from those groups that might be undercounted. But the thing is to be transparent with your audience, which is something I've talked about a lot. Let's see what other folks are talking about here. Hey, Danielle from Trinidad. Oh, awesome. And then Rupert from Paris and Detroit. Awesome. Let's see. I'm so glad you enjoyed the course, Zakira. Yeah, AFP courses for journalists that can be, oh yes, Abdulaziz, please do. Here we go, digital courses, AFP.com. I did one yesterday, is nothing less than great. I admire AFP tremendously, and I'm gonna look at this and send it to our library, even though I'm on sabbatical this semester, but I'm gonna send it to our school library so we could share it with our students. Thank you so much. Let's see. Energy journalists, Global South database, Clue, could access quotes from experts. Yeah. So, yeah, you're going to have to rely on experts. And that's really great. Local government sources, Peg, thank you, can track down some of the figures to support funding in the case of food insecurity. That's one of those words, like the little jargony word, right, that organizations or agencies might use, food insecurity. So add that to your search as well as hunger, right? Gas buddy, right? Crowdsources prices. Yeah, there's lots of ways we have to be really creative, right? And very transparent. Um, Enjoyed the online forum, Emily, and feedback from fellow journalists throughout the course, Emily. Yeah, that's probably the highlight. I mean, I like to think that my videos are really great and that John's interviews that he set up are awesome. And those are some awesome interviews, but I really am thrilled at the engagement and the advice and the knowledge that we're sharing and the ideas, because I mean, we can't get enough, in my opinion, we can't get enough opportunities to do this. Online communities that would offer a similar experience. Does anybody know any online communities, right, for journalists that would offer a similar experience? That's a really great question. Yeah, throw some in and I'll think more about that too. Um, Oh, Gustavo, thank you so much. Best course on fact checking. We've been working on that at Newmark J School for many, many years. They didn't have a fact checking course when I got there, and I really think it's very important for every journalist to think about their work in terms of, fact by fact, right? And then Rupa has a practical question about topic searches using satellite imagery. Goodness. Does anyone have any experience using AI powered recognition tools? I'm still trying to find out how many water towers there are in Detroit. Okay, we'll get back to that, Rupa. The Online News Association, Ty. Thank you. That might be a good place to chat online. I know that I don't know if any of you are investigative reporters, but investigative reporters and editors has a really great discussion forum as well. It's a membership that you have to pay for, but depending on, if you're an educator, and there might be different tiers that you could join on, so it wouldn't be so expensive. But yeah, and then there's a Society of Professional Journalists. I also like the Deadliners Club in New York City because they have meetings and stuff like that. A lot of training. Um, Danielle John on my profile. I'm not sure. I'm gonna ask Camila if she could respond to this question from Danielle about items completed. That's a really good question. And some of oh, there's Camila. She already weighed in on that. Okay, terrific. Thanks, Camila. Okay, Jody. Oh, and if anybody has any more advice, or just ideas about what Joy was talking about, just please add them in there. But Jody, a question about public records, criminal investigation, and personnel records in particular. Go ahead, Jody.
Hi, Barbara. Hey, thank you so much for your and John's
Ooh,
feedback on the signal hire thing has been great. I have
I'm
been
so
able to
glad.
find some stuff. Yeah,
Excellent.
that was great. So I really appreciate that. Although I have to say that the in some cases it gives me email addresses for people that it gives me their personal email addresses, but not their work ones.
Ah, yeah,
But yeah,
that's what they
I
signed up
mean,
for. Yeah.
I know. Anyway, but the question is, so I'm in Montana, and Montana's got a really unusual situation with sunshine laws and privacy laws that actually conflict with each other. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but
No.
there, it's there's very strong privacy laws, but there's also very strong, you know, uh, freedom of information access laws as
Uh-huh.
well. And as a so I'm now a freelancer, and this course has just gotten me thinking about all kinds of stories that I could be doing. And as you probably remember, I focus on disability, but um, the problem with criminal justice records here, for example, like if they're like a lot of times when I was the crime reporter for the local paper, I would ask to, ask for information, and the officials would tell me, well, that's criminal investigation information that we can't give out yet. Now, that was for an ongoing investigation, and I think that that's legitimate
Mm-hmm.
because you don't want to compromise the investigation. You don't want to let people who are suspects know what the cops know, and
That's right.
I get that. But like in the article, I just read the article. Shoot, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting all the names, but the award winners and how the 5 tips. It was the article from this module. Anyway,
Okay, sorry.
the folks that Indiana, Elkhart, Indiana police, punching the guy and that whole investigative with ProPublica, they won that award,
Okay.
and they were asking for personnel records. In Montana, that's like that's a no-go. You can't get personnel records. Like it
Yeah.
just that's privacy, like your personnel record. As a matter of fact,
Mhm.
if like if I were applying for a job, and this I'm sure this is not just Montana,
Mhm.
if I were applying for a job and I gave a reference,
Mhm.
if they called that reference, a lot of times if they're still working at that place that I worked at, they'll say, I can confirm that they worked here, and that's all I can say.
Right, right. That is true. So, there are open meeting laws in New York State and freedom of information laws in New York State, but any personnel matters, meaning any personal records about you and your employment, are not available. The exception is after a very long fight, and this is across many jurisdictions, that in New York State, like police, for instance, you have access to their disciplinary records. The argument was meant that it's in the public interest, which it is, and it costs the public a lot of money. They're, bad choices by police to, do bad deeds, right? So, but for the most part, you're not really going to get around personnel records unless they happen to be in a civil lawsuit or something like that.
Right. So so okay, so that's what the question was, is like, how did those folks in Indiana get those personnel records? And I think they said that they had to pay $1,000 to, I can't remember what that, it was
Yeah.
something that they had to pay $1,000 for, but now that you've explained it more, I understand. So
Yeah. So there's all exemptions. That's what Jody's referring to, all these exemptions to freedom of information laws across the states and the countries around the world. So you always have to look at those exemptions so that you know the law, and you can always argue that nope, that's not exactly what the law says, and this case is adjudicated, so we deserve those records. But in the case of police misconduct and police disciplinary records, there was a big case to be made, and after years in New York State, we have access to those, and many, many, many other states around the country do too. So,
interesting.
yeah.
What about the other one that comes up here, and it came up when for University of Montana,
Mhm.
and I can't think of his name.
Mhm.
Guy who wrote Up in the Air. He's somebody, Krakauer, wrote the book about University of
Yeah,
Missoula,
into the air.
and
Yeah.
and he had to find, and they were citing like student records weren't public record and that kind of thing.
Right.
I guess it'd be interesting to find out how that, but I guess it's the same thing. It's the same argument.
Yeah, it could be
Yeah.
subject to a lawsuit that stuff was released, or a student, you could ask a student to give it to you. That's another way to get that kind of stuff, student records.
Well, thank you.
Sure.
I'm loving this course. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for contributing so much. News nerdery on Slack, Ty tells us. That's really good. I love that. I never heard of that, and I'm going to go check that out soon. Newsnerdery.org. Thank you. So let's get to Rupa's question. Rupa, so any experience in using AI-powered recognition tools? Still trying to find out how many water towers there are in Detroit. I mean, that's a really good idea to be using Google Earth and other satellite imagery tools. But I don't really have a ton of experience about that. Ty is saying maybe Reddit. There might be a subreddit for that. But let me show you something that you could look at. I was gonna show you a couple more fact-checking things in terms of verification, right? See, I already put News Nerdery in there because I wasn't checking that out. But this is the Bellingcat. Actually, it's on our research guides at the school. I'm pretty sure it's these are our fact-checking. This is our fact-checking guide, which I think so social media verification. Yeah, this is the one that I really find super useful. It's from the organization called Bellingcat. And yeah, this is their list of, they have a whole list of let's see, Bellingcat. They have a Google spreadsheet of all of their stuff. So let's see. So it's Bellingcat Google spreadsheet. Let's see. So okay, so this is it. It's BCat tools. Okay, I'll put this in the chat for you guys. So this is from Bellingcat. If you haven't heard about them, there's actually a documentary that was made about them. They use open source intelligence techniques, or OSINT, to to open source intelligence techniques to find the answers to serious misinformation and unanswered questions and crimes regarding like wars and conflict and serious humanitarian disasters. But they have different tools, and here's one for maps and satellites, Rupa, that you could check out. And also on their website, you could check out how they've done some work on looking for these types of, verifying types of things using Google Earth. And there are a few others. I can't remember the names of them, but they're satellite tools, and maybe you could pay for like a month's worth or a week's worth of access to a professional satellite tool, and maybe one that is AI. But I think this is, I'm a little upset that it hasn't been updated since August 2023. But you could also just do a search of OSINT, open source intelligence techniques, and then AI and satellite, right? But I think that was like a great next step. That's very good. And then you could actually, look for the water towers in town where you either think you heard them or they were, and just to see if they're still there. So that's terrific. I hope that was helpful. Let's see.
Yes, very helpful. Thank you so much,
You
Barbara.
bet.
Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So let's see what else we have. EGLE regulates public water supplies. Oh, that's great. Community and non-community. And they should have a close to accurate count of towers in Detroit for you. Very nice, Peg. Thank you. Yeah, see, that's why we need to be on these groups. We got to be on the news.
I don't see I don't see that message. Where
right here. It's right below yours.
Okay.
EGLE.
Oh, it's from Peg from
Yeah.
Oakland, the Oakland Press. Okay. Okay. Yes.
Not related to fact checking, but oh yeah.
Okay.
So we got
Thank
that. You bet. Digital women leaders and journalism mentors. Oh my God, this is great. I'm totally sending this to my students. Let's see if I can get yeah, thank you so much. Let's see what else we have. Snopes calls itself the ultimate fact checker. Absolutely, Lynn. I have loved Snopes since forever. And Ty saying, have you tried the permits department of the city of Detroit? That's a really good idea. Yeah, so just as Lynn sort of got us into that, let's go to, I wanted just to show you Google's fact checker. And it's a great way, especially for breaking news, to So it's called Fact Check Explorer. So let me give you this in the chat. So this is Google Fact Check Explorer. And this is a good way to just, put in a keyword, right? Like, this is not a funny one, but Ohio pets Haitian. There are like a stupid racist rumor came up in the recent debate by two presidential candidates, and yeah. So as you can see, I just put in keywords, and you could see from reputable sources, like Snopes is one of the ones included in here, Lynn, which is really excellent. And they just, their whole job, Snopes, is to debunk video, photo, and just rumors and disinformation and misinformation. So I find this really great, especially when you're just trying to on the fly make sure that, there's nothing written about a topic you're working on, and then you can go the next steps, right? And especially if you're working on breaking news, you can stop looking at something that came across the transom on your desk, right? And stop looking at it and worrying about it once you see that it's already been debunked by several other reputable news organizations and fact-checking outlets, right? So I really like Google fact check tools. That's just a little quick thing. The best way to also do this is to get out of what you're in, right? So you see a rumor in Twitter and it comes up and you're like, that doesn't really seem very accurate or correct. So the next thing I would do is get out of the Twitter platform and search laterally, which means you search across other platforms to check for information. So you could go to Google, you could do a Google News search and search for keywords. You could go to Google Fact Check Explorer just to see what's been said about it. So get out of the social media like mire that you're in at the time and check what other places are saying about it, just to you can quickly find out, like, this is an old photo. If you do a reverse Google Lens search, right? You could quickly find out if you don't have to devote any more of your time to a nonsense thing that comes across your desk as, news, right? So, I'm not sure exactly, Jody, but I would say that they are very good. And I know that they probably utilize experts to be able to tell whether photos are altered. Usually there are experts just devoted to, I can't remember a recent one. I think it was the Princess of Wales. And she put out an altered photoshopped photo, and people were able to quickly tell. There's lots of ways that you can tell that things have been altered, just by comparing and weirdness that pops up. But I think that they're probably very good at it, and they probably enlist experts. Oh yeah, Octavian Papa says that BBC News Reality Check is another one. I hope it's included in this. Yeah, that looks great. I don't know that I've ever seen this before, though, so thank you. I hope it's added into Google Fact Check Explorer. And then EUVS Disinfo. I don't know that I've seen this either. This is really good. Yeah, I'll see if those are included in there, and if not, I'll add those to my research guide from the school. Thank you for that, Octavian. Let's see. Boop, boop, boop. Barbara, okay. Policy regarding graduates who are complicit in journalistic fraud, even that being under threat. I know a case firsthand. Sorry to have to mention it, but it's important for me. Yeah, I would imagine so. You could reach out to if you go to the website and look at the faculty page, I would reach out to Allison Lichter. She's the associate dean at the school, Tomu. And yeah, definitely reach out to her. Okay. And don't feel bad about mentioning it, especially if it's important. Oh, Pointer IFCN. Yeah, I think Pointer IFCN Octavian is definitely included in Google Fact Check Explorer. Yeah. So yeah, thanks for that. Does anybody have any more comments or questions about yeah, fact checking? Pointer does have great courses. I can't agree more. I actually think I've taken a couple. They're really, really good. My favorite, though, is the National Press Institute or the National Press Foundation. I think I linked in your resources. Oh, I see Ty's raising her hand. Hold on one sec. Hey, Ty. Go ahead.
Hi. Yeah.
Hi.
I guess this is more of a philosophical question.
Sure.
So I historically have been a print journalist and switched over to long form documentary, and have only in the past few years freelancing for like broadcast newsrooms, and it's been a real like mind shift and a struggle to shift to the sort of be the first to break the news, because right. So sorry, I'm trying to like put together all the various thoughts I have in my head. I've been doing a lot of research into things like science denialism and misinformation, and time and time again, I'm coming across a pattern of how in broadcast news the tendency to both sides a conversation have often, like where we are right now in this current moment in time with news and trust in media, a lot of it you can draw a straight line to, like, you know, putting up two quote unquote experts with opposing views in a news segment, except the problem is that one expert is an actual climate scientist and the other expert isn't.
Right.
And how do we as an industry move forward when there's like, it's like you have to contextualize the facts, right? Fact checking, like you do it, but then you also have to very clearly state that, okay, we've put in two experts, but one of them is actually not a climate scientist.
Right.
That's just a very specific example, but I'm saying, like, how do you balance that out with the need for speed in broadcast, especially daily broadcast news?
Okay. Well, I just want to say, hopefully to make you feel better about all of this, that I love documentaries more than anything in the world, and I would probably watch too many of them. So thank you for doing that work. But I have to say, I have worked in broadcast news too. And yeah, that is a real struggle. Here's one mindset I want you to have, and I want you maybe to share with someone who might be giving you a hard time about something. And then we'll get into some more nitty gritty about how to deal with this, and hopefully have some input from our colleagues here. But the first thing I would say is, we're biased, right? But our practices are objective, right? So we're going through things to verify whether they're objective, right? Which is very difficult in a time constraint. But guess what? We can't say that the results won't be biased. The results might be biased in favor of the truth, right? So, I mean, it's hard to say, but the process isn't biased, but the results might be, right? So that is, I think, an argument about like objective journalism, right? The process is objective, but if you know one side is completely wrong and not based in any fact, not based in science, why would you present that as equivalent, right? So if the results are biased, it's because of reporting. It's due to, and if it's a result of objective reporting, right? If you have, and by biased, I mean that they're in favor of the truth, science, reality, right? Not opinion. And yeah, so I mean, it's hard to go through all those processes, but everybody that you give a platform, right? Every time you give someone a platform who's spreading non-truths or spreading disinformation, it's only going to hurt people and make our job harder. So, yeah, if the results are the results of our objective process, right, results in reporting that favors one side because of the truth, evidence, corroboration, science, etc. As long as you back that up and you're transparent about it, can anybody offer any more information? Like maybe, Joy, are you in radio? That might be super helpful. I feel bad that you're getting pressure or feeling pressure because of both sidesism. But, I mean, we can see it happening now with very large news organizations, and it's not working out for them. It results in things like the sane washing of Trump, right? Very abnormal behavior, right? Very like psychologically disturbing and disturbed behavior that we feel the need to sort of perpetuate because he's there and some people like him. I don't know if I'm helping you or myself any. But
No, this is really helpful. It's helpful to hear you talk it out, and I really appreciate it. So thank you. It's just the shift from being a print reporter where it's like, you source, you double source, you prioritize fact over being first, to moving to daily news where I'm like, why? Like for me, it's almost like a muscle memory issue where I'm like, I'm trained to fact check or write like allegedly, or we couldn't independently verify. And in the scripting of daily news, like they want to take other, like, oh no, like that doesn't flow smoothly. And I'm like, but we didn't verify independently. It is alleged. Like, this is how we garner trust from our
100%.
audiences, by the caveating. And it's just such a mind shift. But thank you for trying to like it. It's comforting to hear that you've also worked in broadcast newsrooms and come up against this struggle.
And in print newsrooms that I've worked in that were inevitably digital as well, and struggling during the becoming completely digital for the most part. There was that kind of thing. Like if you use something that it just appeared in the paper 3 times before without independently verifying, guess what? It could turn out to be wrong. And you're just perpetuating incorrect information that you could have picked up the phone and, verified. And somebody should have along that chain, right? So be the one that does that, to the best of your ability. And I don't know, bring up the discussions or whatever. Let's see what our please pop in. But I see a lot of, let's see, Jody's mentioned I once had to fight an editor before they announced the name of a law enforcement officer shot and killed. I'd rather be right than first. Absolutely. Here's Octavian. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question about that? Because
Sure.
and that was for print, by the way.
Yeah.
It didn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're anymore. It doesn't matter if I mean, Ty, I feel you and thank you for what you're doing. I totally feel what you're saying.
Mhm.
It, my question is, do you think that this race to be first rather and possibly wrong, do you feel like that might be changing?
Um,
Like that whole, I think the internet and all the newspapers going to the internet and everything, that's what started to perpetuate this
yeah.
mindset.
Yeah, I think that there's always a pressure to be um, there's always a pressure to be first, but I think that most of us have learned um, based on whatever crap could be on the internet that people are sharing widely um, is not it's just not reliable, and unless you independently verify yourself something yourself and go through those steps, go through that process of like, our process should be replicable as if it was a science project, right? As if it was science research. If somebody took the same steps that we took, they would come to the same conclusion, right? Based on who we talk to and the sources we use. Um, so I do think that that has changed. And I have had I have been at the New York Times when they were like, yeah, we don't have to be first on this. Let's get it right. That was a big relief. But, I know times, that doesn't necessarily work. Um, but yeah, Peg says the pace is still faster in broadcast, but you have to advocate for accuracy and balance. And I would add fairness, right? It's just not fair. Alleged will not jack up your script, but it will increase credibility with your audience. Yeah, you have to be transparent. You can't pretend that that's what your editors are asking you to do, or producers. They're like, pretend. But no, you have to specifically say in there, we have not independently verified this. But this being said, and if it's important to the community, it's a work in progress. Joy says she sympathizes, not a broadcast journalist, but can imagine how scripts won't fit a disclaimer into the voiceover. Yeah, research largely funded by the petroleum industry, right? Exactly. Uh, let's see, fight against disinformation. These are great, Octavian. We definitely have to grab these off the chat when it's shared. Usually, Camilla will have this tomorrow too, for us. Let's see. Oh yeah, Brooke Burrell's book is fantastic. She also has, I think I shared it, but she also has, thanks, Tom. She also has a website. It's for science writing, but it's really terrific. So Peg talks about vetting sources prior to booking an interview is critical. Yeah, lots of embarrassment has resulted from that. There are a couple of so-called experts in my area always promoting themselves as news sources, but a quick check showed me they have a particular bias and are often not well informed on a given topic. Yeah, and you'll see them over and over again because someone else saw them and said, oh, here's somebody we could get to put this in context for us, but that's not really what's happening. See where else a promoted source has been quoted before using them. Yeah. And, we talked about diversity of experts, right? Um, you know, don't just think of the certain person you think of for science, for science or STEM interviews or experts, right? Try and think, more about the community you're trying to focus on. Are you willing to? Peg says, "Are you willing to defend the story in court? Should it come to that?" Oh my goodness, yeah, that's a really good point. And yeah, and would you be happy to see it on the front page of the New York Times? That's another one I say. You know, um, yeah, and then let's see. Yeah, PTSD. Yeah, it does cause PTSD. Yeah, I remember being yelled at on the phone all the time, like, we need this, we need this. And then, yeah, like, how can you expect to get something right when that's happening, right? You need to just take a breath and make sure you're doing good work, rather than everybody freaking out. So yeah, does anybody else have any more ideas or questions? Don't be shy. You can pop them in the chat or just unmute yourself. Don't even have to raise your hand. Let me know. Yeah, Rupa, I have a question for the Hive. Do you have to proofread your own work, or does another person read it before it's published? Since I write for a small indie mag, I am the only person to proofread my work. What do you guys say? That's a great question. That's a great
I
question.
have a couple of really easy tricks
What's
that you
that?
can use. One is first, print it out is there's a whole bunch of things you can do. Printing it out is one thing, and then walking away from your computer and reading it out loud to yourself.
Mhm.
You'll find like missing words. I often have my computer read it back to me.
Mhm.
There's an add-on to your browser that's called Natural Reader. That's really great. You can just copy and paste your text into Natural Reader. It'll read it back to you in a voice that's not quite as robotic as like the one you get with Word or whatever. But
That's
there's that
great.
as well. The other thing that I've heard is reading it. This is really bizarre, but I've heard that reading it backwards.
Mhm.
So read your last paragraph first,
Mhm.
and then like read each paragraph in order backwards,
Mhm.
because then you'll find where things don't kind of flow properly.
Mhm.
And then also printing it or copying it into a new document in a different font
That's great.
can
Yep.
also help. So
Yep.
I've been
Most
taking the Pointer Editors course, so that's where I'm learning all this
That's
stuff.
great. Most of that is in the accuracy checklist and some in the video, but this natural reader thing is very cool. I have to look for that. So Emily says, I do. It's me and one other reporter in a newsroom. There's a sister newsroom that helps when we need it, but day to day, I proofread both our stories. That's great. Proofread. Oh, Sarah says, always proofread your own, even with editors, because editors make mistakes. Yes, that's one of the last things you do. Like, just give it a once over at the end to make sure that nothing changed because of a time difference and that your editor hasn't edited in mistakes. And then putting the text in a different font can help, and reading backwards. Yes. Yes to reading backwards. Yeah, it sounds ridiculous, but it's super helpful. You could take it a sentence or a paragraph at a time. And it kicks your brain out of, I've seen this before, I know this, I'm going to skip this just for efficiency's sake. And Abdulaziz says, try to be meticulous the first time. It's not enough, but cuts down on a lot of potential errors. Yeah, definitely. Making sure, making sure every fact you're using is somewhere in a spreadsheet, and that you have a place with a place that you got that from. Yeah. Tumus is asking this failed fact check on Britney's conservatorship on IFCN deserves a public apology and a retraction because it involved the freedom of a woman. Wow. Let's see. Well, I just want to see the nature of that. Is not taking advantage of her. Oh, well, that was definitely not correct. Did they have a correction in it, I wonder? I'm just going to, sorry to scroll. Oh, you can't see it. I'm scrolling. Let's share. I'm just looking at the bottom of that link. I just want to see if they added a correction at all. Yeah. No. No, they didn't. Yeah. Our rating is false. Oh, okay. Yeah, it looks like you might want to reach out to the editors, because that might still deserve a correction, because it's still in there. Definitely. Rupa, are you raising your hand again, or is this from the
Um,
last question?
Yeah, no, I am raising my hand.
Oh, good, good.
I have a follow-up question about this. Oh my gosh, now my mind has just gone blank.
I hate that. You'll think of it.
Yeah, no, I guess I got a little nervous and my mind went blank. So I
That's
just
okay.
maybe like give me a minute.
You bet.
Since it's our last class, I know that oh yes, I remember now. So I asked this question because I have gone back and looked at some articles that I've written, and I found like mistakes that neither I or the editor found when when they were published. And once it's been published, though, there's nothing we can really do to like. I'm just wondering because I might want to use them for clips. And if there are like errors in them, it's not really good to, even if they're small, like grammatical errors, but it doesn't look very professional if they're like mistakes.
Yeah.
And
could you start over? Which doesn't look very professional?
If there are mistakes in the, like in an article, in a published article,
Yes.
that I may have wanted to use as a clip, so they have to be like perfect for clip. I just wanted to that right. I mean, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if there are mistakes, if there are corrections that are stacked up on the bottom of the article, yeah, you might want to try and get closer to the source on the ground. So maybe in a more local article, or even have, a conversation with someone where you can say that you backed up the article. But yeah, I could see how that would not look great. That wouldn't give very much faith. Like, and some people are very critical of that, typos. I can't say that I'm not critical of it, but I definitely notice it. Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, I may like talk to the editor since I know her really well, about like going back and changing things.
Fix it.
They
I
are.
want to use your article, so fix it already. You can do that.
Okay.
Peg is saying if your story is online, it's never too late to correct. So maybe they'd be grateful. I'm sure they would.
Okay.
And append an editor's note that a fact or name spelling has been corrected. Right. Yeah, that's what USA Today should have done, Tomo. And then New York Times has published corrections after decades after. That's true. That's true. There was a pretty recent one. I forgot what it was. It was in the Midwest, but it was it was like 50 or 40 years after the fact, and they corrected it. And I remember a colleague of mine that I worked with, or that I was training, mentioned to me that there was this pastor in a town in Texas, and one of his biggest fact-checking stories was, there were lots of feel-good stories on this pastor in Texas, and this was, I think, in the 80s. And it turned out that when one of the fact checkers at this Texas publication said, I'm just going to look into the background of this person. And it turned out that he had left a whole family behind, like in another state. And it just was really, just like you didn't really need to be doing a bunch of feel-good articles about this person when, you hadn't done any. And so it was like one of those one source stories, and Abdul Aziz here says, in the end, we're humans and prone to making mistakes. Oh my gosh. We've all made them, at least they're not like at the front page of, the Washington Post, but maybe they are. But we all have to cop to them, immediately change them, and then do better, right? But hopefully we can do better before we have to go through that. Oh yes, these corrections pages. Oh my gosh, this is great. Thank you. This is great. I think I added some to our video. So check those out too. I think I have like NPR's corrections and New York Times and USA Today. But yeah, it's also okay to privately let people know. Peg says. So that's true. You can just email the author and say, hey, this is sitting up there with a pretty egregious error. So you might want to fix that, even if it's just a typo. So I think we've come almost to the end of our time. I am just really honored that you spent so much time, chatting with us and with your colleagues, and, the discussions about the courses, and just your really great advice and really great, just collaboration on best practices for how we do what we do and how to continue to do it, better. So thanks again, everyone. And I really hope that you got a lot out of this course, and that you'll take more of these here, because it's really terrific. So thank you so much. And go out there and do some great work, everybody. Thank you.